Just by way of introduction, my name is Allan Walters, and I lead sales in the East for Twilio. And as B introduced Danny actually wears several hats. Danny is the president, CTO, and co-founder of National Debt Relief. And the reason we're really happy to have Danny here today is they've really embarked on a customer transformation experience and a digital transformation at National Debt Relief that's probably been going on since day one of National Debt Relief. We'll talk more about that today, how important technology is to their business. But we're really happy so that he can share his story with everybody here and everybody can learn more about what National Debt Relief is doing as well. So with that, Danny, if you don't mind, if you could just tell us a little bit more about yourself.
Sure.
National Debt Relief and how you've evolved over the last 8 years, that would be great.
We founded our company in late 2008, early 2009 when financial crisis hit our country. And we wanted to give consumers an alternative to bankruptcy. So very small firm back then, 6 employees, really no technology stack, managing things in Excel spreadsheets. And we realized that if we wanted to make a bang, we needed to start investing in our tech stack. So very early on, we decided to move forward with the Force.com platform, Salesforce, and build our entire infrastructure around that. So, website integration, customer interaction, integrations with banking partners that we worked with, and we started building that entire ecosystem on Salesforce. What we didn't build on Salesforce at that time was any telephony. So we were kind of bound by out-of-the-box solutions that didn't really have APIs that weren't tightly coupled with our customer data. So it took us quite some time until we got there and until Twilio gave us that opportunity. But technology was very important to us from the very beginning so that we could optimize our processes. And ultimately, like B mentioned in the previous meeting, previous presentation, our biggest expense has always been marketing and acquisition. So being able to contact our customers within minutes of them applying online was extremely important to us, having excellent conversion rates. And that stat, before it actually showed up on that slide, that was, I think it was an ING stat, but we actually found the same exact thing in our data, that if we contacted customers within 3 minutes of them applying on our website, our conversion rates were 3x. But there really was no way to integrate that all into our experience.
That's terrific. And so as you've embarked on the customer engagement, and we've talked about customer engagement, we've talked about customer experience. Obviously, you have had to overcome and deal with you guys deal with thousands and thousands of customers a day with 1,300 people in your call center. What are some of the customer challenges that you feel like you've had to overcome and that you're really focused on moving forward?
So our customers are getting calls from all over the place: collectors, credit card companies, and we today place, I think, upwards of nearly 80,000 outbound calls a day to try to reach our customers, because they're, as with the Uber example, they're not answering because they don't know who's calling. So reaching out and getting in contact with them has been a challenge, even though that they're engaged with us and they've hired us to help them resolve their debt. A lot of the times, consumers just simply don't answer their phones. So the sheer volume of attempts that we make to get in touch with them when we're simply just trying to provide the service they're paying us for is pretty astonishing.
That's great. That's great. So as we mentioned and talk about those challenges, obviously multiple channels, different ways to communicate with customers. How are you using technology today, and how do you see it kind of evolving in the future as you continue to improve that customer experience with technology? Or through technology?
So what we have done over the last several years is based on the data that we've aggregated in our platform. We've identified that a consumer's geography and age has a direct correlation based on our type of agent they're talking to the Net Promoter Score that we get out of them. So we've run data models that find that certain agents have better, that certain customers have better experiences with certain agents in our contact center. It took a lot of data, years of accumulating that data to be able to run these models, but now we have enough information in our system to know that, if John Smith from Arizona, who's 55 years old, is calling in, he's likely to have a better experience talking to Mary than he is to Bob at our contact center. But routing that person or that customer to that agent specifically, or to that group of best, highest qualified agents to handle that call, has always been a challenge. We've never been able to actually accomplish that prior to launching with Twilio. So previously, when somebody would call into our contact center, putting aside that direct agent experience where we want to route them to somebody that specifically we know based on all these attributes could provide a better experience for them, just routing them to the right department was a challenge, right? So, and these customers, they are frustrated because they're dealing with a lot of other things in their life, and calling in and being transferred around several times is never a great thing. Unfortunately, that's what most of our customers experienced, was you call in, hey, who's calling, what's your name, what's your last 4 digits of your social security number, what's your home address? Okay, great, Mr. Jones, I see that you're calling in because XYZ in your account. Let me transfer you over to the right department. Transfer you over to the right department. Let's hope the first agent got it right and transfer them to the right department. 3 out of 10 times they don't get it right. But you transfer them over and then we repeat the whole thing again, right? Who's calling? What are you calling about? Really no clean handover between agent A and agent B in that experience. And that led to a couple of things. Number one, it led to longer hold times because now we had agents spending less time actually solving issues and more time just diagnosing who that person needed to speak with. So our contact center agents, instead of actually doing customer service, they were kind of quasi, operators, just transferring between switchboards. That led to, us needing more staff to handle those types of calls because of the inability to route accurately, longer hold times, and overall longer experience times when a customer would call in.
That's great. So with that, we'd love to hear, when did you start engaging with Twilio? And how has Twilio, from a technology perspective, really helped transform some of the customer engagement experiences that you're talking about?
Yeah, so the first thing we did a couple of years back is we developed an outbound dialer on the Twilio platform, and we integrated it right into Salesforce so that it would analyze. We had an engine that ran within the Force.com platform that would analyze our client base and identify who we needed to contact for what reason, and looked at our legacy platform and our agent availability and would queue up those calls and outbound dial them and bridge them into our legacy system. And that immediately provided us some relief because instead of us doing tens of thousands of outbound dials each day manually, we now had a platform that was doing this without agents downloading lists and Excel files and uploading them. Before Twilio, we actually launched with a out-of-the-box solution, and we would every day download lists from our CRM Salesforce and upload them into this third-party solution. So that third-party solution would call out, hey, we're calling from National Debt Relief. We have an important update on your account. Please press 1 to get bridged to an agent. They press 1 and we get transferred over. Well, what ended up happening was we'd load this list in the morning, and as it's going through this list dialing out, by the time it got to John Smith from Arizona, John Smith already called in and spoke with an agent on their own, and there was no real integration between these two systems. So we were kind of working, even though it was data from that morning, it was really old data. So we were calling clients that we didn't need to call anymore. And that wasn't great, right? We actually had situations where John Smith's on the phone with one of my agents, and they're getting a call on the other line from our dialer. So that wasn't great. So we looked for voice APIs, and we found Twilio. I know our dev team was very adamant about the fact that Twilio had some. There's obviously Twilio has competitors out there, but The amount of documentation and the developer community was really the reason we picked Twilio back then. So we built this out on the Force.com platform, and it runs like clockwork, right? So every minute this thing scours our database, finds the right clients it needs to dial out on, pushes those calls out to Twilio. Once customer answers, throw in some answering machine detection. If it's a voicemail, leave them a voicemail. If it's a human, bridge them to our legacy infrastructure. And that was what we did for a couple of years, and it definitely was a significant improvement over what we were doing before that.
That's great. So we've heard a lot about multi-channel digital transformation. You've talked a lot about voice, IVR, and some other things. How important do you see other channels like SMS and chat and video playing into your business as you continue to progress?
Yeah, so what we're actually doing is something, coming back to voice, we have a mobile app which allows our clients to monitor their account activity. And mobile app's been out there for a while, but what we didn't have really was any type of push notifications to that mobile app. So what we've done now is, and we're in the process of doing, is integrating the Twilio voice API so that a customer from within their mobile app can identify the reason that they want to contact us and hit call. And we kick off that call directly to our contact center through the app as opposed to the PSTN network. So the moment they hit our switch, they are routed, and the guy on the other line knows exactly why they're calling and who that customer is. The other thing that we're doing right now with Twilio, as far as Omni-channel goes, is routing email cases. So it's not there yet, but traditionally what would happen is client sends an email to our, one of our support inboxes, and that hits our platform and gets tied down to that client, and we have to wait for a support agent to go and pull that case and work that case and respond, right? What we're moving to now by leveraging TaskRouter is instantly pushing that to an available agent within our contact center. So prior to having this, we had dedicated agents that were working voice and email. SMS was not a channel that we ever launched. We hadn't launched because we didn't have the tech stack to do it. But really, voice and email were our primary channels. But we had them worked by really two completely separate groups. So you had your dedicated contact center agents that answered voice calls, made voice calls, and you had your folks that processed emails and responded to cases. With the voice stuff, somebody calls in your IVR, it's getting routed around, so there's really no room for somebody to pull a call. But with cases, somebody isn't doing their job properly, somebody's not managing that queue properly, things can get lost in the shuffle. So what we've done now is routed these, we've combined the two groups together into one experience, and now agents can handle both voice and email chats, and all those get delivered to them through Twilio's TaskRouter experience.
That's great. So as you continue to embark and really lead the way from a digital transformation perspective, is there any advice or best practices that you could offer the audience today as they embark down this same path?
Use Twilio. Yeah, we had prior to this, we used a legacy system that really didn't give us any APIs, any integration points. So it was, getting information between agents was like, it felt like we were using MS-DOS. Analytics on our agents were a disaster as well. Just getting reporting out of our legacy infrastructure was a nightmare. And we were used to, Salesforce is like the cream of the crop when it comes to CRM. So we had this great CRM product, but a really, really crappy phone system that just didn't support us. And I think my advice is start sooner than later, because these things can catch up to you very, very quickly. We were very fortunate. Our company grew pretty rapidly from 6 agents in 2008 to probably by the end of this year we'll hit 1,500 across three sites. it's a fortunate problem to have, but it's very unfortunate that we didn't make the change much sooner and didn't start making the investment into the platform years ago, because now we were playing a catch-up game. We had to quickly try to, put Band-Aids around our technology stack to be able to support the continued growth. And, in hindsight, I think that had we possibly rolled out little, parts of Twilio sooner, it would have given us, we would have been able to take advantage of some of that functionality ahead of time.
That's great. Well, we're on our way. So can you give the audience an idea of, from an implementation perspective, how fast or how rapidly you've been able to innovate with some of the technologies that you've chosen?
We moved all of our so we switched to Twilio as a carrier first when we decided to move to Twilio as a contact center. That took a couple of days just to port over all the numbers, get all that paperwork over to you guys. We saw immediate benefits from that because while our legacy PBX was still in place and we were only using Twilio as a carrier, we at least had insights into our volumes and peak call times and things like that from Twilio's elastic SIP trunking reporting. So we got immediate benefits, even though we weren't using Twilio's APIs for any of the calling stuff, just using them for their, what you guys call your, the super carrier network. We got immediate benefits. The other thing that was really big for us, we record 100% of our conversations for compliance reasons. I don't know if anybody has dealt with recording telephone calls on on kind of old infrastructure. It is a nightmare. I mean, we got to the point where, the company that we used for recording, because of the amount of calls we were handling, told us we need this entire infrastructure. It was kind of like that slide that they showed for sending SMS. They came in and said, all right, this is what you need to record all your calls. You need, load balancers, 6 servers. And, it started with 1 server recording calls, and as volume progressed, we started getting to the point where, you had calls that were choppy, you had calls that just weren't recorded, you had calls that dropped midway through the recording, and then you had calls that you didn't know where they were from. So recording was like the big thing for us because that drove our speech analytics and quality management. And again, when they showed us this deck of, you need this entire infrastructure just to record, forget about making calls, right? Just to record calls. I needed more infrastructure to record calls than I did to run my entire customer database and do everything else that actually makes me money as opposed to just recording these conversations. So flipping over to the elastic SIP trunking on Twilio and using their call recording gave us immediate benefits because now we actually had 100% record all quality and quality recording. So that was the first thing we did. But overall, the entire path took us about 4 months from start to finish, which was moving everything A to Z, IVRs, queues, agents, building out the agent desktop and the Salesforce CTI integration. So it was all in about 4 months.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And Danny understates the company that he's built. They're located downtown New York. And not only are they creating a great customer experience, you guys are also creating an incredible employee experience in a very high-tense environment. The first time I was in there, it was really neat to see the motivation and some of the processes that they've implemented internally. So hats off for not only really creating a great customer experience and customer engagement, but also on the employee side as well. So with that, I think we are out of time, so I will hand it back over to B, but I want to thank Danny again. Thank you for coming in. Danny will be here for today, as well as all the Twilio folks.